Hey guys, today on this Ecotec 1.4 liter turbo engine, we're going to be looking at a coolant leak. And if we take a look down here in the water outlet area, we can see there's a couple of different distinctive leaks. So first we see some DexCool residue. Hopefully this light is helping you guys with this. We see some residue from the top part of this hose running down the side, running down here, and then dripping down on the ground. And then we also down here below, if we zoom in closer here, we can see we also have what appears to be some residue leaking out from the bottom of this pipe and then down past this coolant pipe that goes over to the turbocharger and then falling to the ground. So we can see that the dripping here has resulted in corrosion around the spring clamp holding the rubber part of the coolant pipe to the turbocharger. And we can't really say that this is a leak from this pipe here because this is metal. This is aluminum. So this is probably a problem with the hose, but we won't know until we get this off and examine it. So we potentially have a bad hose for this leak. This leak up here could also be a bad hose, but it could also be that the water outlet plastic has cracked. And the only way we're going to be able to know is to start getting some of these clamps off of here, this one and this one, and take a look. We'll be removing this hose to see what kind of damage we have. Now, if we zoom in really, really close, we can see that we have dried up coolant residue on top of the hose, which indicates that it's probably got some overspray under pressure coming up on the top. And then we also have it on the side. So this really looks like it might be a crack inside this nipple that's under this hose. But again, we can't really see enough to tell. So we're going to end up having to do some diagnostics by pulling this off. So we're going to get started with that, and we'll see where that leads us. All right, guys, let's get started with getting these clamps off of here. It's going to be our first little task. Try to pull them up over the hose insulation if I can get it open enough. If not, then we'll just slide it down here just to get them out of the way. I usually like using this tool because it's very convenient, but sometimes you get these situations where just logistically it won't fit and you have to resort to just using a pair of pliers or something else, which I never like using with these kind of clamps. I'm also trying not to do any twisting or anything that might aggravate a break that we might have in the plastic. All right. Hopefully you guys can see, because you guys are going to get to diagnose this in real time along with me. I'm just going to try to kind of see what we've got going on here. If there's any evidence of a crack. So we don't want to deal with any coolant loss or anything like that yet. Now the evidence of something like this, before I get too far into it, if you take a look at the reservoir, you can keep filling this guy up, and then within a couple of weeks of driving, he drops down by half. So it's a pretty significant leak. It's just one of those kind that you won't actually see anything on the floor, at least this particular example. There's never been anything on the garage floor or the driveway. It mostly just leaks out while you're driving. And we're going to try to get some of this dried up DexCool out of here, see if we can see any sign of a crack in the water outlet before we take this hose off anymore. So we're just going to kind of peel all this dried up DexCool material. Now this is just runoff down here. The source is up here. Now I'm not seeing anything that's wet, and I'm not seeing any sign of any crack or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can just work the hose a little bit. Because what I'm hoping for is just to see some weeping or something that might confirm whether we have a crack or just a hose problem. So I'm not seeing anything that would lead me to believe that this water outlet housing is cracked. Now, this is not the original housing. It's been replaced with a previous owner. It's at least the second one that it's gotten. So I'm starting to think more of the hose, particularly with the problem we've got going on down here as well. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and pull this hose off. All right, guys, let's take this hose off. I just put a little bag here in case we get a little bit of coolant runoff as part of our diagnostic. Flashlight's going to probably walk on us. And I'm trying to be super gentle with this because I don't want to cause a crack in this water outlet if all we're going to have to do is come in here and swap out a hose. All right, so got a little bit of coolant showing up now, coming out of this hose. I don't know how much we'll get out of the water outlet. Hopefully no more than we got dropping into this bag. Not bad, not bad. Just a little bit. Okay. All right, so now we can get a better view of what we got going on. Just going to have a little bit of gurgling and burping here. We want to catch all that. Might be a little bit more than we planned for, unfortunately. We need to have all this kind of run its course so we can look at the pipe. All we're dealing with here is any residual coolant that was in here or right at the T of the pipe. All right. No point in draining the radiator and everything just for a diagnostic like this. It's a waste of time. All right, let's just take this out. We can put this in our little container and send it on its way to the recycle place. We cut down on the mess. We're going to have just a little bit more dripping here for a while, and that's okay. So now what I can do is I can use the coolant to help clean up the dried up coolant. We can kind of see what do we got going on here. Do we have any evidence of any cracks at all on this nipple? And I don't see any. Now, of course, I'm going to get under here with a magnifying glass and make super sure. But I'm kind of still leaning on that we had some kind of problem with the hose here just because of what we got going on down there. Let's go ahead and get the bottom part off, and then we can kind of make a for sure diagnosis on whether we're just replacing the hose or we're also going to have to replace the water outlet as well. So we can get this off of this lower metal cooling pipe. So I can find a home for the flashlight so you guys can watch. We're going to lose some. And we got a pan I'm sliding under there to get that. All right, so it's definitely a very distorted hose. You can see it's nice and fat here and nice and crimped there. Inside, I can see what looks like it might be something. Let's see if we can the end of the light in here. So yeah, I do see some tears on the inside of the rubber. Maybe just from years of use and fatigue. Not seeing anything on the outside. It definitely doesn't feel as firm and as pliable as I would have expected. If we end up replacing this guy, we would end up replacing it with this one. So you can see there's a part number on the top here that says it's a 555-65952, but that has been design improved by GM to this 555-96898 part. It's basically the same thing, but it looks like they've changed it where it doesn't have this kind of sleeve on it, right? There's some sort of a sleeve on the outside of this one that this one doesn't have. So I don't know if that was just a design that they found was not effective, or it's a cost-saving maneuver. I don't know. We're going to take this over on the bench. We're going to try and examine it a little bit more so I can make a decision about whether we got a leaking pipe or we have some sort of leak here. I cannot believe that there would be anything going on with this aluminum pipe that would be reflecting what we're seeing, right? Because this is not a failure or a wear item here. And so it's actually this lower leak that has me more suspicious about the pipe itself. Even if we change this pipe out, we're going to have to change this rusted spring clamp on the turbocharger's coolant line, because that's going to eventually go. And, you know, it'd definitely be on my list if we ever have to replace the turbocharger to swap that coolant pipe out as well. But let's go ahead and take a close look at it, see if we can make a diagnosis on what's really wrong here. All right, guys. I'm kind of satisfied that at a minimum we do have a problem going on with the hose. The interior of the hose is completely disintegrating. You can just scrape the rubber out with this tool very easily, and it's just the inside of the rubber is just falling apart. So the material is failing, and I don't know if you guys can hear this. I'll move it closer to the microphone. But as you squeeze the pipe, you can hear air coming in. So what I suspect is happening is, even though it appeared like it might be leaking from the inside diameter, it's actually leaking somewhere on the outside diameter where the spring was compressing it. You know, maybe here feels like it might be a weak spot, just looking at that. But, you know, I know some of you guys are probably thinking, like, you know, wow, you spent a lot of time looking at this hose. But, guys, look, you know, you don't want to throw parts at these kind of problems. You want to do a proper diagnosis. You want to figure out exactly what's causing your leak and only fix what you have to fix, right? So if we didn't do this diagnosis and we pulled that water outlet off, we would end up still having the leak due to the hose problem here. On the other end, so, you know, it's leaking at both ends. I see the same problem with the inside diameter of the hose just breaking apart, just with, you know, just doing a very gentle, I'm not even doing anything really hard here, guys. I'm just kind of gently going around the inside, and the inside of the rubber is just disintegrating. So I feel satisfied that this is not that bad of a repair. We just need to throw that new hose on there and a couple of new clamps. This clamp's okay, but the ones that are rusted out, we're going to replace, and we're also going to pull that lower coolant pipe from the turbocharger and replace the rusty clamps off that one as well. And I think that, you know, at a minimum, this needed to be closed. We'll see how it does if it gets rid of the leak, but it definitely needed to be swapped out given its condition. Guys, just one more view inside here with a different light that I have. Hopefully this will allow this breakdown to show up a little easier on the camera here. So you can see inside, just from swirling that pick in here, there's just tons of material from the inside rubber that has flaked off, curled off the inside of the hose, right? So, you know, again, actually more concerned at this point about how long this has been going on and how much of this crud got into the engine. Not so bad on the upper part, but definitely still has the same problem. And again, you know, it's right along where the clamp was holding it, particularly right there. All right, so we're going to swap this guy out. All right, guys, if we zoom in here, we've got this nipple area all cleaned off. I've gotten in here with a magnifying glass. I cannot see any evidence whatsoever of any cracking. That doesn't mean there's not something here that's not showing up, right? I mean, I've tried to be gingerly move it around to see if I see anything. Obviously, it's still got coolant in here. If we're moving it around, it had something, we would see something leaking. I'm going to go ahead and just try to tackle this with replacing the rotted hose. Also, we can see on this bottom part, this bottom nipple is aluminum. This whole pipe is aluminum, so obviously there's not going to be a failure point with the aluminum pipe unless it had some actual trauma and damage to it, which it does not. We've cleaned up all the dried up crusties from the DexCool on here, and we're ready to reinstall the new pipe. However, we still have something going on down here. Now, what I'm hoping is that all of this corrosion that we see is because of the coolant that's been running down onto this clamp on this lower hose, and not a problem that this lower hose to the turbocharger is also shot. So what we're going to do next is we're going to pull the clamp on this, and we're going to pull this hose off for two reasons. One, we're going to replace the clamp, and I'll show you the part numbers and all this in a minute, and also we're going to inspect this lower hose. This type of coolant line here, it starts off rubber, and that's where you got this heat shield, and then before it actually connects into the turbocharger, it goes into a metal piece. It's kind of like an air conditioning line where you've got partially aluminum, partially rubber. So I'm going to do that next here and just see what we got going on. Trick will be to try and find a place for the light that still allows you guys to see what's going on. I was half expecting this thing just to collapse on me. Now, just looking at it, I'm kind of worried that the same kind of rotting that we had in this upper hose may be going on with this hose here. But we'll see if we can get away with not doing that. All I'm trying to do now is just clean it off and see if I see any evidence of weeping, which might kind of condemn the hose right off the get-go, right? I'm not seeing anything so far. So when we pull this, we're going to have some coolant loss just from what you see up here in the upper part of the hose. You're going to get a few milliliters. Again, there's a catch pan down underneath, guys, so don't freak out. It's not going to cause Captain Planet to swoop out of the sky on us. And this one I'm being even more careful of because I don't want to cause any damage and make this job be any larger than it needs to be. So we can see also here, this is an aluminum nipple coming out of here. And again, when I pop this, we're going to get a little bit of runoff. Just to minimize the mess and make sure it's dropping into this pan we got down here under the car. We're just going to kind of let it trickle out, just like you see. So the level we have in here is running down to that nipple. Got a little bit inside the pipe itself. Only doing this to minimize the mess, guys. Don't want to get anything on the driveway. The problem with these coolants is they are very hazardous to animals. Animals were to ingest coolant, a lot of species, it would result in an immediate kidney failure. So that's why you want to try and make sure you take care of this stuff and not let it spill. Move that guy a little bit better. And then whatever you do spill, try to clean up afterwards. All right. So we're going to have to let some of this coolant kind of ooze up and percolate up. There's a little bit of, a gravity effect where some of the coolant that's in the system is going to put pressure on it and cause us to continue oozing out for a little bit. We want to let that kind of do its thing, and then we'll take a look inside that pipe and see if we have the same kind of decay going on that we had in the upper. All right, guys, fortunately, I don't see any damage inside this pipe, so I'm satisfied that, and I've run the pick around here and I'm not getting anything here. I'm satisfied that what we had was just runoff from the other damage that was causing the corrosion. So let's get this put back together with the new parts. So we're going to swap out these clamps. We come back up here. So I took the clamp off already, right? There's the small clamp and there's the larger clamp, and we're going to replace these with new GM ones. The small clamp's part number, and they take these out of a larger container, so they give them to you separately, so you don't get an actual GM package, but it's 905-30642. I grabbed two of these just to have an extra, but that's the guy we'll put on the small pipe going to the turbo. And then 115 70871. That's the bigger one that we'll put on the new pipe that we're putting on the top and the bottom. And then again, that part number on the new hose, or new pipe, whatever you want to call it, 555 96898. So when we put this guy on, these white outlines are where the clamps should be positioned within those lines, with the hinge point right along the cross mark, top and bottom. And then also you can see there's a ridge on this aluminum pipe, right? So we want the base of the hose to rest against that ridge. So I'm going to just get these clamps onto the pipe and get it positioned, and we'll snap it in. All right, guys, I went ahead and pre-loaded these new clamps on. There's really nothing to it at this point. Put this guy back on the nipple. Put the clamps back in position. All you see me doing here is trying to get it as close as I can to its original indentations from the previous clamp that was all rusted out, just because we want to monitor this guy. All right, so the shape on our old hose and our new hose is very similar, right? Remember, on the bottom one, we're going to push it down until we bottom out on this flare piece of the aluminum pipe. Can't remember if this is the pair of pliers I used up here to get this guy on or off or not, but this is what we're going to do. Again, we're going to try to put it right in the middle of this thing. Make sure it's in all the way before we release it. Similarly down here, and I could use the hose clamps, but clearance is a problem down here. Trying to get it just to move down evenly into the paint area we were discussing before. Yeah. There she goes. All right. All right, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to top off our coolant. We're going to run it for a while. You have to probably top off the coolant a few times. We probably lost down here in the pan, I'm guessing maybe 3 pints of coolant, maybe 4, maybe 4 pints of coolant. Not really sure, have to measure it out, but we'll run it and get the air out of it, and I believe this will fix our coolant leak. If you found this helpful or you got some better ideas, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'll try to help, or we'll be happy to read what you have to say. If you found this video useful, hit that like button. It helps with the video being discovered, and thanks for watching.